And my great aunt goes, so what did San Giving do? What is San Giving's story? And we're like, what are you talking about? And she thought it was the feast of a saint called, like, instead of San Francisco, it was like San Giving, because in Spanish we don't have the th sound, and we don't have any words that end in ni and ing. So we all refer to it as like, oh, we're celebrating San Giving. And then we all laughed. It's like, there's no San Giving. It's Thanksgiving. It's a day of giving thanks. But, you know, I still call it San Giving once in a while. And, you know, the reason why I started talking about our ancestors is that during some of these days, people that were kicked out, people that were rejected, would be found in this holiday, and it was difficult, right? And then the other thing is, when I started college, one of my TAs, this African American man, said, you know, this is a day of fasting for me. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because it's always a day of feasting and the commercials and all that stuff. And he said, you know, what are Native Americans thankful for? This was in Minneapolis, Minneapolis has the largest Native urban population in North America, the Lakota people, the Ojibwe, and there's big reservations in Minnesota. And the treaties in Minnesota were all broken in kind of yucky ways. And so he explained, you know, that the Wampanoag Indians and all these lies that have been given here and all these stories. And so ever since then, Thanksgiving has been this weird holiday for me. First, because I don't have a tradition, because I'm from El Salvador. And secondly, because, you know, I do have Native blood running in my veins. And so that's, you know, and the conflicting part is that after college, some of you may know that I spent 7 years as a monk. And in Thailand, they give you a name depending on the day of the week that you're born. And so if you're born on a Monday, there's different letters. And so your name in Pali will start with that. And if you're born on a Tuesday, then that. So I was born on a Wednesday. So K is one of the words. And my Pali name is Katanyuto, which is one who feels gratitude. And what that means in the definition is you acknowledge what has been received. You pay attention to what has been received. And whatever Pali name you get given, you're supposed to kind of meditate or, you know, think about it. So sometimes people that are really shy get given like these, you know, happy enlightenment, lotus flower kind of names, you know. But mine was one who feels gratitude. And how do you catch whatever you're taking for granted? If you're taking it for granted, then it's hard to acknowledge. And you know, I've been thinking about this now. It's been over 20 years since I left. So I'm 51 now. I've been meditating for over 30 years, and I've come to this conclusion that contentment and gratitude are some of the highest spiritual attainments you can have, as opposed to spiritual pirouettes, you know, psychic powers, super meditation master, a lot of brain knowledge. I get more impressed by humility, a sense of humor, generosity. I think generosity is the beginning of the spiritual path, and it goes full circle, and it's the end of the path. How do you become generous towards yourself? How do you practice that? And gratitude was very important to Ajahn Sumedho, one of my teachers. He used to talk about it a lot. Katanyu Katavedi are the terms, which is first acknowledging, having the perspective to see what you have, and then the arising of it is cultivating. So it's actually impossible in my mind, in my understanding, to say, okay, I'm going to feel grateful now. You can't just be like, okay, because if you take gratitude as an experience, you can cultivate. Yeah, I love this word, because you cultivate and then you're like, don't know what's going to happen. You may be hit by a tornado, but you still cultivate it. You know, when you cultivate, your karma ripens, and who knows what's in there. You know, and gratitude is such a blessing. It's healing, and to me, it's similar to forgiveness in the sense that you cannot order forgiveness. You have to have such deep understanding to heal a wound, right? To understand forgiveness is to acknowledge that scar, but to know for sure that that scar cannot get infected. It will not hurt you. It'll be ugly. And it takes a while to cultivate gratitude, forgiveness, contentment. Words that in American culture, in my opinion, they're not talked about. You know, the values in American culture, things like convenience. Everything has to be convenient in some aspects of, like I remember Target. My husband used to work for Target Corporation in Minneapolis. And they counted how many seconds people waited in line before they got really impatient. And they had to a science. So they would bring in another cash register, right? And convenience is great. There's nothing wrong with it. But when it comes to spiritual practice, how do you reconcile that with, let's say, patience? Patient endurance. One of the hardest things in the world. Yeah. And that word in Pali is kantiko, which is you acknowledge dukkha. You know, you ennoble yourself by understanding dukkha. And then the second noble truth is, I'm attached to not things wanting to be this way. And it's a lifetime practice. Yesterday, I was feeling all grumpy for no reason. Maybe there were reasons, but I was very irritable. And I'm in Key West, right? I'm walking around. It's about 72 degrees, sunny and breezy. And it's so beautiful. And I was just like annoyed by life. But, you know, after 30 years of practice, I'm talking to myself. I'm annoyed by life. And I'm not going to punish my husband because I used to have these immature things of ways of behaving, like giving silent treatments or snapping. And I'm like, I'm in the middle of this. I don't know how. And and I'm learning how not to repress, because in spiritual life, you can have these shadows and these bypassing tendencies where meditation can worsen your emotional life. And it was, that was like, in the middle of my annoyance yesterday, which I cannot tell you why I was feeling that way, but I was feeling annoyed. In the middle of it, I'm telling myself, this is the fruit of my practice, that I am living with this grumpiness, and I'm holding it. Like I have something, something in my mind was witnessing this really unpleasant emotional state. And to me, that is the fruit of my practice. Like in my annoyance, there was a part of me that was happy. It's weird, right? Or when I with these 10th graders, there was a time, it was 6 periods. So there are 6 periods in school. And at the 6th period, I have 2 boys who have very strong ADHD with very strong, difficult backgrounds. And they're tired. Sometimes they're hungry and they act up. And at one point, I'm starting to lose it. And I'm just like, okay, listen, getting really grumpy. I'm human. And I can feel the tiredness in my body and all that. And that's the fruit of the practice, to see, life can be really hard because I'm tired and I'm hungry. And I've been, sometimes I tell my students, listen, my throat hurts from talking so much and I need your help. And I do M&Ms with them at the beginning of class. And my M&M is my mindfulness moment. And over half of them don't do it. Like I'll tell them, oh, do this, like do it 3 this. And I'm like, but I do it. And so I think it is my personal opinion that it's unreasonable to expect the mind to meditate if throughout the day we're not practicing. And with the lives that we have, with the world that we live in, I really want to encourage you to find your practice and let your practice find you. And what do I mean by that? I have this strong belief and perception that if you practice regularly, these things appear to you. Like, we are built in different ways, like whether you're a Capricorn or an Aries, or if you do the Enneagram, there's 7 personality types. We're built in different ways. And I think that if you practice, these things arise. I'll give you some examples of my life. Like there was a time when I was doing all these mudras, and my hands, I was feeling all this energy in my body. My hands would start going into these mudras. And then later on, I found out these books where all these mudras have been cataloged. Sub-Saharan African people have been doing humming and dancing. And so sometimes your body will feel like humming, and you'll hum, and it's got healing thing. Which reminds me, I don't break practice into Western practice and Eastern practice, because the world is not East and West, Where do Aboriginal people from Australia fit into the East and West? Where do the native people in Guatemala fit in the East and West? And if you think that only Eastern people get enlightened, do you think that African people didn't get enlightened? That's wrong view. Do you think that native people didn't get enlightened? They had different languages for it. But we don't know, the Spanish burnt 600 years of libraries written in deerskin in El Salvador. They erased all of our written stuff. So I don't know how people in El Salvador got enlightened. But the Buddha did not invent enlightenment. That's so stupid. First of all, what gets enlightened? Your personality? Like there's nothing that gets enlightened. Time, we've heard this, like time is an illusion. Yeah, time is an illusion and space an illusion, but we're filled with clocks. This is how I see the world. Okay? We have beginning, middle, and end because we have a planet that goes around the sun. And then we have a moon that does this cycle. So the moon is a clock. The earth is a clock. And this body is a clock. This body had a beginning, this body has a middle, and this body will end. But space and time are these weird things. And so enlightenment, there's so much debate about what it might be. And if you just take it to the simple things, first of all, I do agree with the masters that say that it is our birthright to understand our mind and be in the present. I think it's our birthright to heal. Those times maybe you have been blessed with a moment of presence. And maybe you will experience this of just being here. Nirodha, the third noble truth. You know what nibbana? It just means a fire that has extinguished. It's people think about all these glorifying, and nirvana in common culture is like, oh, you're just peace, chilling, or maybe you're like high without having to take substances, or you'll get enlightened and you'll never feel suffering again. There's so many misunderstandings. And at the end of it is a mystery. It's love. You know, I grew up Catholic, and I do not have Catholic trauma. I understand that many people do. There were meditation masters in the Catholic tradition. My favorite is Saint Teresa of Avila. Her teacher was Francisco de Osuna. She did the 8 jhanas, and she explained the 8 jhanas in Catholic language. Jhana is the 8th part of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's meditation, it's absorption. And whatever language one speaks, we have to follow it, you know, little by little. And I don't know if I've been all over the place. You know, it's 11 o'clock here. That would be my excuse for the night. But I just right now, I'm just so filled with gratitude for receiving what I have received. And after 30 years of meditation, I know that I'm not going to get a medal. I'm not going to get a degree. I'm not going to get a promotion. It's cyclical. It is not this climbing like, oh, now I'm going to be like super meditator or super teacher or something. No, and as we look at our shadows, our negative things, our unacknowledged stuff, to have that compassion, that sense of humor, that energy to keep going, it's beautiful, you know. And wherever you're at, to open up to the present. And throughout the day, if you find things that are joyful or interesting to you, that you're bringing up your curiosity, so that practice is not about sitting. It makes your sitting better. You know, right now I'm counting my steps, and I'm meditating, but I'm not too hard on it. So I want to thank you for being here. And as you go on with your evening and your day, I wish you all the very best. And our ancestors are with us. And every time we work for our happiness, we honor everybody that has ever loved you and loved us. And we honor everybody who gave up their life, their energy, so that we can be happy. So important. So many blessings to you.